I hadn't thought about Tyler in months. Or at least, I told myself I hadn't. Not in any meaningful way. Sure, I'd occasionally see someone with his hair cut on the subway, or hear a song that reminded me of the road trip we took through Vermont. But those were just passing moments. Little blips. Nothing that stuck. But then he showed up in my dream. It was so vivid I woke up with his name on my lips. In the dream, we were back in my old apartment, the one with the creaky floors and horrible heating. He was in my kitchen, barefoot, standing in front of the open fridge like he used to, holding up 2 beers and asking, "Want one?" like it was still his place too. His voice sounded the same, calm, soft, a little smug. I hadn't seen him in almost a year. When I woke up, my pillow was damp. I don't know if it was sweat or something else, but I felt hollow, like I'd been somewhere real and then had it yanked away before I could understand what it meant. I figured it was a fluke, a weird dream. Maybe I'd seen something that reminded me of him earlier in the week. Maybe my brain just pulled his image from the vault and threw it in for nostalgia's sake. But the next night, he was there again. This time, we were walking down a quiet street. Autumn leaves on the sidewalk, streetlights casting that soft orange glow. We weren't talking. Just walking next to each other, our arms brushing every so often, and it felt peaceful, familiar, like something I didn't know I missed until it came back. I didn't want to wake up that morning. The third night, it changed. The dream was at the bar where we had our first real fight. I was sitting at the booth by the window, the one we always joked had our names etched in it, because we sat there so often. He walked in and sat across from me. Didn't say anything, just looked at me with that unreadable expression he used to wear when he didn't know how to tell me something hard. That one lingered. And then he showed up in real life. It was a Thursday afternoon. Cold but sunny. I was walking home from a client meeting, passing through the tiny park near my building. There's this curved bench I always cut by. I barely noticed the guy sitting there until I was almost past him. But then I did. He was sitting exactly how he used to sit, one ankle on his opposite knee, elbows on his thighs, hands clasped loosely. He had that same green jacket, the one I gave him shit for never washing. And when he looked up, I knew I wasn't dreaming. Tyler blinked, then stood. "Hey," he said, voice quiet, like we'd just seen each other last week. I stopped walking. My chest felt like it had caved in. "Tyler?" He looked older somehow, a little leaner maybe. Or maybe it was just that I hadn't seen him in so long. His eyes looked the same though, tired and warm. "I didn't think you lived around here anymore," he said. "I don't," I replied, even though that wasn't true. I didn't want him knowing he was practically sitting 2 blocks from my apartment. "I was just passing through." He nodded slowly, like that answer didn't quite make sense to him either. We stood there for a few seconds in this weird silence. Not awkward, just heavy. Like both of us were waiting for the other to break it. Finally, he spoke. "Can we talk?" I should have said no. But I didn't. I should have said no. I should have kept walking. Told him it was weird to run into him after all this time, that I didn't have anything to say. I should have respected the boundaries I'd set for myself over the past year, the ones that took months of therapy and even longer to start believing in. But instead, I found myself sitting across from him at a tiny table inside a cafe neither of us had ever been to before. The place was quiet. It had those Edison bulbs that hang too low and soft jazz humming in the background. The barista didn't even blink when we walked in together. Just asked what we wanted, like it wasn't the first time we'd shared space since everything fell apart. Tyler ordered a black coffee. I got a chai latte, mostly because I didn't know what else to say and needed something to hold. He sat down across from me, wrapping his hands around the warm cup like he always used to. He still cracked his knuckles absent-mindedly, right, then left. I hated how fast the details came back to me. "How have you been?" he asked, the most basic question in the world. But it felt like he'd just thrown a match onto dry grass. I could have said good and left it at that. I could have lied. But instead, I gave him a small, tired smile. "Different." He nodded slowly, like he understood exactly what I meant. "That's fair," he said. I've been kind of a mess. I raised an eyebrow. Still living in Crown Heights? No. Moved to Astoria a few months ago. New job, needed a reset, I guess. Funny how we always wait until after the damage is done to hit reset, I said, not intending for it to sound so sharp, but I didn't take it back. Tyler winced but nodded. You're right. I looked away, out the window. A dog trotted by wearing a tiny red hoodie. Two guys argued softly in front of the bodega across the street. The world hadn't changed, not really, but something in me had. You've been in my dreams, I said suddenly, surprising even myself. Tyler's eyebrows lifted. Seriously? 3 nights in a row. Wow. Yeah. Weird, right? He leaned back in his chair a little. His expression softened, not smug, more like hesitant wonder. I've been dreaming about you too, he said. It's why I came to the park. That hit me in a way I wasn't ready for. I sat up straighter. You went to that park on purpose? He nodded. You used to talk about it all the time. I figured, I don't know, maybe I'd run into you. So this wasn't some random run-in? I don't think anything about us was ever random. That line, Jesus. That was classic Tyler. The kind of sentence that would have worked on me a year ago. That probably still worked on me, if I was being honest. But I wasn't ready to fall into old rhythms. Not yet. Maybe not ever. So what is this then? I asked. You pop up in my dreams, then show up in real life, and now we're just catching up like nothing happened? He frowned. I'm not trying to pretend nothing happened. Good. Because a lot happened, Tyler. You ghosted me when I needed you most. And now you're here with that same look you used to give me when you were trying to smooth things over. He looked down at his coffee, swirling it a little like it could offer him answers. I know I messed up, he said quietly. Back then, I didn't know how to deal with my own shit, let alone yours. I took a slow breath. That was the thing with Tyler. He always said just enough truth to feel sincere, but never quite enough to fix anything. And now? I asked. He looked up. His eyes were still the same hazel green I remembered, with that little amber ring around the pupil. Still devastating and soft lighting. Now I think about you a lot. More than I should. That was both too much and not enough. I don't even know who you are anymore, I said, quietly. Then let me show you, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I hated how much I wanted to let him. The thing is, people don't show up in your dreams for no reason. Maybe it's memory. Maybe it's regret. Maybe it's your brain trying to work out the stuff your heart hasn't made peace with. But when they start showing up in real life too, you have to ask yourself if the universe is trying to say something. Or if it's just giving you one last test to see if you've really moved on. I wasn't sure which it was yet, but I wasn't walking away either. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, the soft hum of the radiator filling the room, but my head was loud with questions. Seeing Tyler again had cracked something open in me, something I thought I'd welded shut months ago. The dreams, the cafe, his voice, it was all tangled up now. I couldn't tell if I was more haunted by the memories or the fact that I wasn't sure if I wanted to make new ones with him. My phone buzzed once just past midnight. Tyler, I know it's late. I just wanted to say thanks for talking to me today. I didn't expect it to go like that. I stared at it. No part of me wanted to get into a back and forth at 12:14 a.m. But I also didn't want to leave it hanging. I didn't expect to talk to you either. He didn't reply right away. I set the phone down, turned over in bed, and tried to will myself to sleep. A few minutes later, it buzzed again. Tyler, can I be honest? I rolled onto my back, sighed, and picked it back up. Yeah, sure. His reply came fast. Tyler, I've been wanting to see you again for a while. I just didn't know how to say it without sounding like an asshole after everything that happened. I stared at the screen for a while, thumb hovering. He didn't ask a question. He just wanted me to know. That was somehow worse. You kind of disappeared, Ty. That wasn't just a bad breakup. You left when things got hard and never looked back. Until now. There was no reply this time. I set the phone face down on my nightstand and tried again to sleep. Eventually, I drifted off, but it was restless, filled with flashes of our old apartment, his laugh echoing in places it didn't belong anymore. The next morning, I told myself I'd keep busy, no checking for texts, no accidentally passing through his old neighborhood. I put on headphones and went for a run through Prospect Park, trying to burn the ache out of my chest. It didn't work. All it did was make me think of the time we ran that 5K together and he held my hand across the finish line like we were some kind of team. Later that afternoon, I was on my way to Trader Joe's when I saw him again. I was crossing the intersection at Flatbush and 7th when I heard someone call my name. Not loud, just enough to pull me out of my podcast. I turned. Tyler was sitting at an outdoor table at a tiny brunch spot, a half-eaten sandwich in front of him. Same green jacket, that same look on his face, like he couldn't believe I was actually there. "What are the odds?" he said, standing slowly, brushing crumbs off his jeans. I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Maybe both. "That's the third time in 4 days," I said. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "It's not on purpose, I promise." I crossed my arms. "You stalking me?" "Not unless you're stalking me too. I was here first." That got a small laugh out of me before I could stop it. He took a hesitant step forward, like he was gauging whether I'd bolt. "You have a minute?" he asked. "We don't have to talk about the past. I'd like to sit with you. For a bit." I should have kept walking. Instead, I nodded and sat across from him, again. The table was wobbly, and the umbrella above us squeaked every time the wind picked up. I watched him fidget with his napkin, peeling it into little strips the way he used to when he was nervous. "Why now?" I asked. "Why are you showing up in my dreams? And in real life? Why are we doing this?" He looked up slowly. His eyes were glassy in the light. "Because I miss you," he said. And I don't think I realized how much until it was too late. There it was. That word again. Miss. A word that sounded sweet but meant nothing without action. I didn't respond right away. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of syrup and bacon from inside the restaurant. I watched a leaf spin down into the street. "Do you miss me?" he asked quietly. I looked at him then, really looked. He didn't look like the guy the first used to love. Not exactly. There were new lines around his eyes. His hair was a little longer. He looked tired. Like life had weathered him a bit, but in some ways he was still the same. Still had that half smile he used when he was scared of the answer. Still leaned in just slightly when things got serious. Still didn't know how to keep his hands still. "I miss who we were," I said finally. "I don't know if I miss who we are now." He nodded slowly. "That's fair." Silence stretched between us again. Then he said something that surprised me. "Would you ever want to start over?" My heart jumped. Stupid, hopeful, cautious. Start over how? Not as boyfriends. Not yet. Not even friends, if that's too much. Just two people getting to know each other again, from where we are now. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because part of me had never stopped hoping he'd ask. I didn't give him an answer that day. Not a yes, not a no. I told him I needed time to think, and he said he understood. But the way he looked at me, like he'd just been handed a second chance and didn't want to fumble it, stayed with me long after I walked away. For the next few days, I tried to get back to normal, whatever that meant. I buried myself in client work, went to the gym, even met up with friends for drinks. But it was like Tyler was on a loop in my head. Not just the recent moments either, but everything. The good, the bad, the quiet in-between stuff. Sunday mornings in bed. Arguments over whose turn it was to do dishes. The way he used to hum under his breath while folding laundry. Stuff I hadn't thought about in forever, suddenly coming back in sharp, aching detail. And the dreams kept happening. Every single night. Some were soft, just us lying on a blanket in the park, hands brushing, but never quite touching. Others were intense, like arguments we'd never finished, our voices rising, our eyes full of things we never said when we should have. And then there were the strange ones, where we'd see each other in a crowd but never speak, just lock eyes across distance until I woke up with a hollow chest. After a week, I messaged him. Me. Let's try it. He replied in less than a minute. Tyler. Yeah? Me. Yeah. One drink, one walk, one real conversation. No pretending we didn't hurt each other. Tyler. Deal. We met on a Thursday night, around 7. I picked a bar that felt neutral, one neither of us had ever been to. No ghosts, no memories, just unfamiliar walls and clean slates. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at the end of the bar, tapping his fingers against the edge of his glass. He looked up and smiled, something tentative but real. No performative charm, just nervous warmth. Hey, he said as I slid onto the stool beside him. Hey. We didn't hug. I didn't want to blur the lines too quickly, but when our knees brushed under the bar, neither of us moved away. So, I said, glancing at the drink in front of him. Old-fashioned? He nodded. Still my favorite. I figured. You used to give long speeches about how the bartender had to muddle the sugar cube or it didn't count. Tyler laughed softly. Wow. You really remember that? Of course I do. You were insufferable about it. He smiled into his drink. I still kind of am. I ordered a gin and tonic, and we eased into small talk. Jobs, rent prices, mutual friends. It was stilted at first, like we were both afraid of breaking the surface too soon. But after the second round, it started to loosen. He asked about my freelance projects. I told him about a client who wanted 48 logo variations for a candle company named after her cat. He told me about his new job at a nonprofit, helping design housing solutions for low-income neighborhoods. I listened, surprised by how much it seemed to matter to him. You sound different, I said. How so? I don't know. I paused, searching for the right word. Less guarded, I guess. Like, you're actually here. Tyler didn't look away. I wasn't really there before, not the way I should have been. I nodded slowly. No, you weren't. We finished our drinks and left the bar, walking side by side down a quiet block. The air was crisp but not cold, and for a second, it felt almost like fall again. Like the season we ended in. We passed a small bookstore that was closed, its lights still glowing faintly through the window. Do you remember when you tried to make me read that novel about the guy who talks to birds? I said, half laughing. He grinned. Hey, that book was good. No, it was weird. You're weird. That's why we worked. My smile faltered just slightly, but I didn't correct him. I kept waiting for you to come back, I said, stopping in front of the bookstore. Tyler turned to face me. I kept trying not to. That stung. I think he saw it on my face. I mean, not because I didn't care, he added quickly, but because I thought I'd done too much damage. That coming back would only make it worse. You left without saying goodbye. He nodded, eyes dropping. I know. I didn't deserve that. No, you didn't. Silence fell between us. Not awkward this time. Just thick. I looked at him. Really looked. He was standing under a flickering sign, hands stuffed in his coat pockets, a half step closer than he used to be. And I realized something. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt sadness. And maybe, just maybe, curiosity. I'm not promising anything, I said. I'm not asking you to. But I'm willing to see who you are now. If you're willing to let me see. He nodded once, slow and sure. I want you to. I exhaled, the tension in my chest softening just a bit. We kept walking, side by side. Not as boyfriends. Not yet. Just two people, trying to find out if the story that ended too soon might have something left to say. There was no grand plan after that night. No dramatic declarations, no Instagram posts hinting at a reunion. Just a few exchange texts the next day. A joke about the Candle Cat logo. A link to an article he thought I'd like. It felt light, careful. Like we were walking through a house with creaky floorboards, trying not to wake something sleeping beneath. We didn't talk about what we were doing, and I think that helped. There were no expectations, at least none we admitted out loud. The second time we saw each other again was a Sunday afternoon. He asked if I wanted to go to the farmer's market. That was a weird full circle moment. He used to hate those. Said they were overpriced and full of people pretending their tote bags made them better than you. But there he was, texting me at 10:06 a.m. Want to judge hipster produce with me? We met up near Grand Army Plaza. He had a cloth bag slung over his shoulder and was holding a coffee that he immediately handed me without asking. Still take it black with 1 sugar? He asked. I blinked, a little caught off guard. Yeah. He gave a small nod, like he was proud of himself for remembering. I didn't say anything, just sipped. We walked through the rows, making dumb comments about the names of artisanal cheese and inspecting tiny overpriced jars of honey. At one point, a vendor offered us a sample of something, some kind of oat spread, and we both hated it so much we burst out laughing. Like really laughing, bending over, faces red, wiping our eyes, kind of laughing. It felt easy, too easy maybe, but I didn't stop it. Later, we sat on a bench overlooking the park, sharing a paper bag of kettle corn, the city humming in the background. There were families everywhere, kids with sticks and scooters, couples with dogs, the usual Brooklyn Sunday vibe. He tilted his head toward me. This feels weird, right? Which part? All of it. Us. Sitting here like this, I shrugged. A little, but not in a bad way. He popped a piece of popcorn into his mouth. I've been thinking about what you said, about how I ghosted, about not saying goodbye. You mean the stuff that should have been obvious? I said, not sharply, but not gently either. Yeah, he said, taking it without flinching. I deserve that. I spent months trying to convince myself it was easier to walk away than to say what I really felt. And what was that? That I was scared, he admitted, of being vulnerable, of messing it up, of needing someone too much. That's not an excuse. I know, I'm not giving you one. We sat in silence again. He offered me the rest of the popcorn. I took it. I loved you, I said after a minute, watching a golden retriever chase a pigeon. I don't think you ever really believed that. I did, he said quietly, but I didn't know how to let myself feel it back. Not fully, not until it was too late. I looked at him, really looked, and I saw it, the shift. Not just guilt, growth. Or the beginning of it, anyway. People change, I said, unsure if I was reminding him or myself. They do, he agreed. If they want to. He paused, then added, I want to. That stayed with me. Not, I have changed. Not a plea for forgiveness. Just honesty. I'd take that over any apology at this point. As the afternoon slipped into early evening, we walked back toward the train. Not touching, not even walking that close. Just there, together, but separate. I didn't know what we were, or where it was going, but I didn't need to define it yet. I just wanted to see what it felt like to let something grow again. From scratch. Before we split up, he turned to me on the sidewalk. I don't want to rush anything, but if you ever want to come over, no pressure. Just hang out, watch something. You used to be obsessed with making me watch the worst reality shows. You mean the best reality shows? I corrected. He smiled. Right, those. I'll think about it, I said, already thinking about it. He nodded and stepped back. Cool. Then he left, and I stood there a little longer, watching his figure disappear into the crowd, like a movie ending that didn't quite resolve. And for once, I was okay with that. Not everything had to be all or nothing. Sometimes, things come back not to resume where they left off, but to start from where they should have begun all along. I said yes to the invite. Not right away, not even that same week. But a few days later, when a cold Tuesday evening left me restless and my apartment felt lonelier than usual, I found myself scrolling through my texts. Tyler had sent a photo of a horribly burnt grilled cheese a few hours earlier with the caption, "Chef of the Year, please advise." I had replied with sarcasm, of course, but something about it felt normal in a way I hadn't had in a while. So I typed out, "Still offering that couch and terrible TV?" He replied in 30 seconds, "Absolutely. I'll even try not to burn the popcorn this time." I didn't overthink it. I grabbed a hoodie, keys, and took the Q train up to his place. He buzzed me in without a word, and when the elevator opened on the 5th floor, he was already at the door in socks and a faded NYU hoodie. That was the first surprise. He looked relaxed, comfortable. The second was his apartment. It was cleaner than I expected. Warmer, too. Nothing fancy, just a plant that hadn't died yet, books stacked sideways on the windowsill, a half-finished puzzle on the kitchen table. "You want tea or something stronger?" he asked, leading me in. "Tea's fine. What are we watching?" He motioned toward the couch. "You pick." I've made my peace with being emotionally manipulated by whatever reality show you love. I ended up picking something dumb and British. Tyler brewed 2 mugs of chamomile and joined me on the couch, a careful distance apart, not awkward, just intentional. The way 2 people sit when they're still figuring out how not to touch too soon. It was comfortable, not intense, not loaded, just 2 people sharing space. He laughed in all the right places, made sarcastic comments about the contestants, wardrobes. At one point, he offered me the blanket folded at the end of the couch, and when I pulled it over my lap, he didn't try to wedge under it too. No assumptions. That somehow meant more than if he had. Halfway through the 3rd episode, I noticed I wasn't watching the show at all. I was watching him, not in a sappy way, just studying the differences. He'd grown into himself a little more, still leaned his elbow on the couch cushion like he always did, but now he rubbed his jaw when he was thinking, like a new habit. He looked good. But more than that, he looked stable, and I realized how rare it is to see someone you used to love and think, he might actually be okay now. "You good?" he asked, catching me staring. "Yeah," I said. "Just thinking." "About?" I shrugged. "You. This. How not weird it feels." He smiled, a little crooked. "It's kind of wild, right? That we can sit here and it doesn't feel like a landmine?" "Not yet." "Not yet," he agreed. There was a beat of quiet, and then he said, "I keep wondering what would have happened if I hadn't messed things up." I sighed, sinking further into the couch. "We would have crashed eventually. You weren't ready. And now?" "I don't know, are you?" He didn't answer right away. Just looked down at the blanket. At the fringe, he started twisting between his fingers. "I'm not perfect," he said, "but I'm trying. I started seeing someone. Like a therapist, not romantically. I'm working on stuff I didn't even know I'd buried." "That's good," I said honestly. "That's huge, actually." "Yeah, it feels like it." I could hear it in his voice. He wasn't telling me for points. He wasn't trying to convince me of anything. He just wanted me to know. We stayed on the couch until nearly midnight, both too stubborn to admit we were sleepy. When I stood up to go, Tyler walked me to the door, hands in his pockets. "Thanks for coming over," he said. "Thanks for the tea." He laughed. "Next time I'll burn the popcorn. For tradition." Next time. He said it casually, but it stuck in my head all the way home. That night I didn't dream about him. Not the old version of him, anyway. No weird symbolism, no half-remembered moments from the past. Just sleep, quiet and full. For the first time in weeks, I woke up feeling clear. Maybe this wasn't a second chance. Maybe it was a new beginning entirely. We didn't fall back into each other like the movies say you should. There was no sudden kiss in the rain. No tearful night of confessions. No moment where he reached for my hand and the whole world slowed down. That's not how it happened. That's not how we were doing it. It was slower than that. And honestly, better. After the night at his apartment, we started hanging out more. Quietly, cautiously. It wasn't a big thing. Just consistent. A text here. A walk after work. A drink on Friday nights that somehow turned into 2, then 3, then us splitting a plate of fries and laughing about something that wouldn't be funny to anyone else. The rhythm was familiar, but the lyrics had changed. One night, we were sitting on a rooftop bar downtown. It was late. The place was mostly empty, strings of dim lights swaying in the wind. We were sipping drinks, mine too sweet, his too strong, and talking about old road trips. Remember that motel in New Hampshire? The one where the ceiling was literally caving in? Tyler groaned. God, that place smelled like wet socks and regret. I laughed. And you insisted we stay because it was charming. It had character, he said, grinning. You almost got us murdered by raccoons. They were just curious. It was dumb and nostalgic and so incredibly us. We leaned against the railing, watching headlights blur below. I felt his shoulder brush mine, just barely, and for once, I didn't pull away. You know what I've realized? I said, not sure why I was saying it out loud. What? I'm not angry anymore. He turned slightly to look at me. At me? At everything. You. The way it ended. Even myself for holding on so long after it should have been over. I'm not mad about it anymore. He nodded slowly, letting the words settle. I've thought a lot about that version of me, he said. The guy who ran, who didn't know how to show up. I looked at him. And who are you now? He didn't answer right away. I'm someone who wants to get it right, he said finally. Not perfect, just real. With you. That scared me more than any dramatic declaration would have. Because it wasn't romantic. It was honest and terrifying. And exactly what I needed to hear. He didn't ask to come home with me. I didn't ask him to stay. We parted ways that night with a hug that lingered a little too long. His hand slipped to the small of my back before pulling away. We were testing it, seeing how it felt to trust the silence again. A week later, he kissed me. It was after a movie night at my place. We'd ordered Thai food, spilled rice all over the coffee table, and argued about the ending of some indie film that neither of us fully understood. He stayed after the credits rolled, just sitting there, twirling his empty glass between his palms. I could feel the air shift, the way it does when something's about to happen. I've wanted to kiss you for weeks, he said, barely above a whisper. I didn't move, didn't even breathe, but I didn't want to do it until I was sure you wouldn't see it as me slipping back into the past. I looked at him then. And what if it's not the past? Then I want this to be the first kiss of whatever this is now. And then he kissed me, softly, slowly. No firework explosion, no swelling music, just the warmth of lips that used to feel like home. Feeling like something new this time. He pulled back slightly. Okay, I nodded. Yeah, really okay. The next few weeks were a blur of something that felt like rediscovery. We didn't call it dating. Not right away, but we fell into routines that were undeniably more than friendship. Shared toothbrush in the cabinet, his sweatshirt left on my chair, waking up with his hand brushing my back, like a silent check-in. We talked more too, not just the surface stuff. He told me about his therapy sessions, about how he's working through the way he handles conflict, how he used to avoid confrontation, because he thought silence was safer. I told him about how I second-guess myself in relationships, how I wait for people to leave, even when they swear they won't. We didn't try to fix each other, we just listened, and it was enough. One night as we lay in bed, legs tangled under the covers, he whispered, "It's weird, I dreamed about you again last night." Yeah? Yeah, we were in the old place. But it wasn't the same. You looked different. Older, happier. Were we together? He smiled into the dark. We were. But it didn't feel like before. It felt like now. I closed my eyes, letting that sink in. Maybe the dreams were never about the past. Maybe they were about reminding us what still mattered, what was unfinished, what could be rewritten. And this time, we were writing something worth dreaming about. Winter came early that year. One morning in November, I woke up to find frost lacing the edges of my bedroom window. The radiator knocked and clanked like it was fighting to stay alive. Tyler was already up, standing in the kitchen in his socks, drinking coffee with his eyes half shut. He looked at home. Not in a way that felt invasive, in a way that felt earned. We hadn't had the talk. Not officially. There was no, "what are we now?" moment. But I think we both knew. We weren't circling anymore. We'd landed. Still, something in me held back from saying it out loud. One night, we had dinner at his place. Roast chicken, roasted carrots, and some overcooked rice. He was trying. It was kind of adorable. Afterward, we sat on the floor with a cheap bottle of wine, surrounded by the mess of plates and crumpled napkins, and he looked at me like he was searching for something. "What do you think this is?" he asked carefully. This? Us. Whatever we're doing. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know, but because part of me still wasn't used to having a say in how things ended, or how they continued. So I took a breath, and I told him the truth. I think it's new, even if it's with the same person. His shoulders relaxed like he'd been holding his breath too. He scooted closer until our knees touched. "Okay," he said. "Good." Then he leaned in and kissed me. Slow and familiar, but also intentional, like he wasn't taking it for granted anymore. That was the night I realized we'd stopped dreaming, because real life was better. Weeks passed, holidays came and went. We met each other's friends again, like it was the first time. We took turns cooking on weeknights, burning half the meals and laughing about it. I kept a spare toothbrush at his place, and he left his hoodie on my chair so often I stopped noticing. But the biggest change wasn't in the routines. It was in how we talked. No more circling, no more swallowing how we felt. We told each other everything, even the messy stuff. One night, I confessed I was scared this would fall apart again, that I didn't fully trust that something could be broken and still made better. He didn't try to fix that feeling. He just pulled me into him and said, "I'm not leaving this time. Not when it matters." And he didn't. Not when I got sick and he showed up with soup and a book I'd mentioned once, months ago. Not when I had a rough day and shut down. And instead of retreating, he sat next to me and said, "You don't have to talk. I'm just here." Not when I told him I loved him again. This time on a quiet walk home from the grocery store, in the middle of a dumb conversation about laundry detergent. He didn't hesitate. He just stopped walking, smiled, and said, "I've been waiting for you to say that." The dreams stopped after that. Not because I didn't think about him anymore, but because I didn't need reminders. He was here, real, present. And this time, he wasn't just showing up in the background of my mind or on a park bench by coincidence. He was beside me, hand in mine. Not perfect, not a fairy tale, but ours. And finally, that was enough.